Indian traditions seem to have a passive tolerance, whereas the notion of secularism brings in an active tolerance. Now it's very interesting because exactly this description comes into 19th century accounts, colonial accounts of India, which talk about how the Indians are tolerant even though, although the term communal is not there, even though they have Hindu-Muslim antagonism. Now let me put to you what this toleration was. The fact is, a lot of colonial travelers, for instance, observed, well, they don't really care enough about their religion, so they participate in the Muharram processions as well, and the Muslims go to the temples. This is some kind of passive toleration, but it does not have any active form. It's indifference, or it's at best cowardice, right? The active toleration that you talked about is a notion of rights. It cannot but be located in the question of rights. Now, interestingly, if you look at one particular question, which is question of cow slaughter, right? There is a transformation from the passive to the active, right? The passive time, or the passive moment of discussing how to manage the problem of cow slaughter was marked by dialogue. Every locality, village, whatever, would talk about, what do we do? Okay, this is a mixed village, we do not feel that cow slaughter is right, or we feel cow slaughter will be allowed this year, or we think that we should never allow cow slaughter, whatever. So there is dialogue. This is supposedly passive. Whereas in the active form, the state decrees that cow slaughter is a right that the Muslims enjoy, and therefore it is allowed. And so the Muslims may slaughter cows if they are whatever, at Bakri Eid or whichever festivals. Now this is not, to me there is a contradiction. What is it that we are calling active and passive? Is it that following state injunctions is active and actually dialoguing with other people is passive? Because then there is a strangeness to this notion. The second observation I wanted to make was, I felt that the debate was not quite grasping the same object. Because in some ways the communal conflict, the logical problem that Jacob is posing is talking about what conflict is involved in conversion. Whereas the way that you are looking at it constantly refers to the notion of majoritarianism, democratization, what secularism means in that context. Now I wanted to point out that secularism in the 1930s is in fact related to democratization, but not, I would say, in the way that you're talking about it. Secularism is not simply one part of the progress of the Indian nation. In fact, nationalism and secularism are not related in the way that you put it. Because there's a particular problem that the Congress Party faces in the 1930s. It cannot make the claim that it is the only nationalist party, but it can, and that is why it makes the claim. It is the only secular party, because all the other parties are in fact communal. And these are not communal in terms of retrograde or regressive. They are simply communal as a description of the party itself in the context of separate electorates and the representation that is allowed them. Now, in that case, how would you think of secularism itself has changed? Do you think it has shifted? Because at that point of time, it's not about anti-colonial politics, it is about representation of politics. Who gets the right to represent every single individual?
Modernity introduces, unlike pre-modernity, mass politics and mass awareness on a scale which is incomparable. This leads to active and more active forms of tolerance, and also leads to more active forms of intolerance. And the fact that you can have rights which are abuses, which are wrong and all the rest of it, comes with the territory. We have no escape from it. So this active and passive must be understood not in the framework of East and West, past and this thing, but must be understood in the framework of modernity, pre-modernity.
But then would there be a time when you would not be communal?
No, let me just get on to that. We can have the discussion outside. Let's discuss it, because I only have a minute here. I want to take up the question of dharma and dharam. Any number of sarangs of Brahmanical Hinduism have argued that we are talking about dharma, and don't understand dharma as religion. It's so different. What is dharma? It is simply the high Hindu variety of what is called cosmization, normization, which takes place for everything. And cosmization, normization is, if you like, the relationship between the ordering of meaning in society and the ordering of meaning and the ordering of the cosmos. And cosmization, normization means how one reinforces the other. The most striking difference, and this is, they're everywhere in different ways. The most important difference of dharma is that it is the most incredibly detailed and elaborate form of cosmization and normization for the stabilization of society. It is not only because of this, it is in fact the most conservative form of cosmization and normization, hence the enormous power of what is called dharma, which belongs to philosophical dimensions within the currents within Hinduism, is it is the most suitable for the rationalization and stabilization of the caste system.
Quantum physics is dharma. Quantum physics is dharma.
Sorry?
Quantum physics.
Well, that's a different question. I think I should stop.
Well, I don't know what dharma is because, I mean, we don't have a clue really today. We don't have a theory of dharma in any sense of the